Hello and welcome to Skyline. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Driti Atri. And tonight, America is once again at the center of global headlines. A battle over birthright citizenship, a shocking case involving a former judge, a massive investigation into H-1B visas that could worry thousands of Indian professionals. In the meantime, Germany preparing for a possible future war, China increasing pressure on Taiwan, and in the end, in West Asia, missiles, military strikes, and a dangerous game of retaliation between the United States and Iran. Well, the world is definitely changing faster than ever. Every decision made in Washington, Beijing, Tehran, or Berlin, it has consequences that could reach Indian families living abroad. So, let's start with it. Well, one of America's oldest constitutional debates is back. And once again, Mr. Trump is at the center of it. The whole issue is something called birthright citizenship. Now, many of you watching this may already know what it is, but if you don't, let me explain here in a very simple, possible way. Imagine a child is born inside the United States under the American Constitution. Now, that particular child automatically becomes an American citizen. It does not matter where the parents come from. It does not matter whether they are permanent residents, whether they are temporary visa holders, or even undocumented immigrants. For more than 150 years, that has been the rule in America. But Mr. Trump is saying that this rule is being misused. According to Mr. Trump, some people are traveling to America just to have their babies there. He claims businesses are advertising these services, even putting up signs near the western border, telling people that they can pay thousands of dollars, give birth in America, and secure American citizenship for their child. Mr. Trump says that this is not immigration, this is business. And according to him, American citizenship is being treated like something that could be bought. And that is why he posted a strong message saying American citizenship is not for sale. But here's where things are becoming trusting. America's Supreme Court recently rejected the legal argument made by Mr. Trump's administration. Well, the court says that the Constitution, it protects birthright citizenship. It ruled that children who are born in the United States continue to receive citizenship under the 14th Amendment. Now, for Mr. Trump, this was a huge setback, but instead of accepting the ruling, he says he will immediately ask the Supreme Court to hear the case again. Now, this whole debate is much bigger than politics. It affects immigration, border security, future elections, and millions of families living in America. Many immigrants support birthright citizenship. Others believe that the law needs to be changed. America itself remains divided, and this whole legal battle, it's far from over. If the Supreme Court agrees to hear the matter again, then the entire immigration debate, it could return to the national spotlight. Now, for the immigrants living in the United States, this particular case is worth watching very closely because any major immigration debate often leads to wider discussion on visas, citizenship, and future immigration reforms. One court ruling, one political promise, and one constitutional battle that can shape America's future. But yes, while Mr. Trump, he is fighting inside the courtroom, another courtroom in America has delivered a discussion that has shocked the entire country. Can you imagine this? A judge, somebody whose job is to uphold the law. Well, he's now being accused of helping an immigrant escape federal agent. Sounds like a movie, but it actually happened. Former Wisconsin judge Hannah Duggan. Well, that person has now avoided prison. Instead, the court fined her $5,000. So, what exactly happened? Let's go back. Well, in April last year, a Mexican national named Eduardo Flores Ruiz, he arrived at the court for the hearing. But outside the courtroom, federal officers from FBI, ICE, and DEA, they were waiting. They wanted to arrest him. In fact, according to the investigators, the judge, Hannah, she became unhappy after learning about the arrest. Instead of allowing the arrest inside the courtroom, she allegedly directed the man and his lawyer through a private exit normally used by the jury. Her intention, according to prosecutors, it was to help him avoid immigration officers. But the escape, it did not last long. Federal agents caught him outside. He was eventually deported. The whole case quickly became a national news. Here, supporters of Mr. Trump called it proof that some public officers were interfering with immigration enforcement. Others defended the judge, saying that she was simply trying to protect orders inside her courtroom. Months later, a jury found her guilty of obstructing a criminal proceeding. However, she was cleared of another charge that accused her of hiding a person from the arrest. Now, this particular week, the court decided that she should not go to the prison. Instead, she received a fine. Before sentencing, she said that she had spent years serving her community. She insisted that she never acted with bad intention. Let me quote what she said: "I am not a hero. I am not a criminal. I was simply doing my job." Now, here, the judge hearing the case argued that prison was unnecessary, pointing to her years of public service. But the political debate, it is only getting louder. On one side, it is proof that immigration law must be enforced more strictly here. For the other, it raises question about how immigration officers operate inside local court. Once again, America finds itself divided, not only over immigration here, but also over the justice system itself. And as the 2026 political season heats up, cases like this are likely to become more talking point. Now, from a courtroom controversy, let's move to a military decision that could change the balance of power in Europe. Well, Germany is preparing for a very different future, and America is playing a key role. Ladies and gentlemen, for years, Europe has depended heavily on the United States for its security. Whenever there has been a crisis, NATO has stood together. But today, Europe is facing a completely different reality. The war in Ukraine continues. Russia remains one of Europe's biggest security concerns, and many European countries are now spending billions of dollars to strengthen their militaries. And now Germany has taken another major step in that particular direction. Ladies and gentlemen, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, he has announced that the United States has approved the sale of Tomahawk cruise missile to Germany. Now, these are not any ordinary missiles. The Tomahawk is one of America's most trusted long-range precision weapons. It can travel more than 1,600 kilometers and strike targets with incredible accuracy. They are launched from warships and submarines and have been used in several major military operations over the year. Now, according to the Chancellor Merz, Germany and the United States reached this particular agreement during a NATO meeting. He said that these missiles will help close an important gap in Germany's defense capabilities. And at the very same time, Germany also wants to develop its own European-made long-range weapons so that it becomes less dependent on the American power in near future. You know what's interesting is that just a few months ago, there were doubts about whether this deployment would ever happen or not. Earlier, Mr. Merz, he suggested that the plan could be delayed because American weapons stockpile has been reduced due to the ongoing conflict in Ukraine and Iran. Now, at one point, there was also political tension between Mr. Trump and Mr. Merz over Iran, with both the leaders publicly criticizing each other. But despite those disagreements, defense cooperation between Washington and Berlin, it has continued. Now, this whole decision sends a very clear message. Europe is preparing for a future where military strength matters more than ever. Countries are no longer waiting for the next crisis. They are preparing before it arrives. Now, for Russia, this is another sign that NATO is becoming stronger than ever. For America, it shows that its European allies are willing to invest more in their own defense. And for the rest of the world, it's a reminder that global military competition is becoming more intense with every passing month. One missile deal, but a message that reaches far beyond Germany. And yes, while America is helping one ally strengthen its military, back home, Washington has launched an investigation that could impact thousands of Indian professionals working in the United States. If you are an Indian working in America's tech sector, or if you dream of getting an H-1B visa someday, this next story is extremely important for you. One of India's biggest IT companies, Cognizant, it has suddenly come under the spotlight in the United States. But wait, before anyone jumps to the conclusion, here's an important fact. The company has not been accused of any sort of wrongdoing. However, its name has come up during a major federal investigation into possible visa fraud involving H-1B and PERM visa programs. The whole investigation has been launched by the United States Department of Labor's Office of Inspector General. It is part of a broader campaign led by the U.S. Vice President, Mr. J.D. Vance, who says the administration wants to eliminate fraud in employment-based visa program. During an interview, a senior federal officer revealed that investigators have already issued dozens of subpoenas and are following leads provided by whistleblowers. Now, while discussing those leads, he specifically mentioned Cognizant, saying the company had come up in conversations surrounding H-1B and PERM visa issue. Now, it's very important to know that simply because it is mentioned in an investigation, it does not mean a company has broken the law. So far, American authorities have not accused Cognizant of any illegal activity. But because Cognizant, it is one of the largest employer of Indian professionals in the US and one of the biggest users of the H-1B visas, the investigation is attracting a lot of attention. According to the Labor Department, investigators are looking into allegations that some employers may have submitted fraud visa applications, underpaid foreign workers, forced workers to return parts of their salaries, and used visa program in ways that hurt American workers. Officials say that they also want to identify possible human trafficking and forced labor network linked to the guest worker program. Well, Mr. Vance, he has made the administration's position very clear here. He says the H-1B program, it was created to bring highly skilled professionals like scientists, engineers, doctors, technology experts to the US. But according to him, the whole system should never be used by fraudsters. He said that American jobs should go to American workers and anyone abusing the visa system will face strict action. Now, this whole investigation that is being watched very closely by Indian tech industry. Thousands of Indian professionals work in America on H-1B visas. Many are employed by large IT companies. Any major changes to the visa enforcement or compliance rule, it could have significant impact on employers as well as the employees. For now, the investigation is continuing. No conclusion has been announced, but one thing is certain. Immigration, work visas, and foreign workers remain one of the biggest political issues in America today. Now, from visas and technology, we now move to Asia, where rising military tension between China and Taiwan are once again putting the entire Indo-Pacific region on the edge. Well, from America's visa debate, let's move on to Asia, where another dangerous flashpoint is getting hotter by the day. And this time the focus is on US ally, Taiwan. A small island, but one that sits at the center of one of the biggest geopolitical rivalries. China has once again raised tension after carrying out a missile launch over Pacific Ocean. Beijing says it was simply a routine military exercise though, but Taiwan is not convinced here. Taiwanese officials believe that this is another attempt by China to increase military pressure and remind the entire world that it has the power to act whenever it wants. Now, to understand why this matters, we first need to understand the relationship between China and Taiwan. Ladies and gentlemen, China considers Taiwan to be part of its own territory. Beijing has repeatedly said that reunification, it is going to happen. If necessary, force could be used here. However, if we flip the script, Taiwan sees itself as a self-governed democracy with its own government, its own military, and its own economy. For decades, this disagreement, it has remained unsolvable. But over the last few years, military activity around Taiwan has increased dramatically. Chinese fighter jets regularly enter Taiwan's air defense identification zone. Chinese naval ships patrol nearby waters. Military drills have become larger and more frequent. Now, this latest missile launch, it has once again raised alarm bells in Taipei. Well, here Taiwan says China is trying to change the regional status quo through military pressure rather than diplomacy. Officials fear that repeated military exercises are becoming the new normal, making the entire region even more unstable. What is making Taiwan even more nervous is the growing uncertainty over international support. For years, Taiwan has depended heavily on the United States for military and diplomatic backing. America has never officially recognized Taiwan as an independent country though, but it has supplied weapons and maintained close security ties with the island. However, today the global situation it is becoming more and more complicated. Why? Because the US is deeply involved in multiple international crises, from the war in West Asia to continuing support for Ukraine and growing security challenges elsewhere. Washington's attention it is kind of divided across several fronts, and that is why every Chinese military move around Taiwan it is now being viewed much more than just as a routine diplomatic or military warning. Well, a single missile test, it may not start a war, definitely, but repeated military pressure, it increases the chances of a misunderstanding, an accident, or maybe a confrontation that nobody wants. But for India, this story also matters. Taiwan is one of the world's biggest producers of advanced computer chips. Any conflict in the Taiwan Strait, it could disrupt global supply chain, affect electronics, smartphone, automobiles, and even India's growing tech sector. Sometimes a missile launched thousands of kilometers away, it can end up affecting businesses and consumers around the globe. And yes, while tension continued to rise in the Pacific, another tragedy has unfolded much closer to the West Asia, where the US Navy has ended a massive search operation after losing one of its senior officials. War is often measured in missiles, fighter jets, and military operation. But behind every uniform is a human life. And today, the US Navy is mourning the loss of one of its own. The US Navy has officially confirmed that the commander, Gabriel Edwards, the commanding officer of Helicopter Sea Combat Squadron 5, has died following a helicopter emergency in the Arabian Sea. According to the Navy, Commander Edwards, he was flying aboard an MH-608 Seahawk helicopter when it was forced to make an emergency landing in the Arabian Sea. What happened next? It triggered one of the largest search and rescue operations in recent weeks. For more than 102 hours, rescue teams searched relentlessly across nearly 14,000 square miles of open sea. Aircraft, ships, rescue crew worked day and night hoping to find a missing commander alive. 3 other sailors who were on board the helicopter, they were rescued safely. But Commander Edwards, he could not be found anywhere. After 4 days of continuous searching, the Navy made the difficult decision to suspend the rescue operation. It was a heartbreaking moment for his family, his fellow sailors, and the entire US Navy. Officials have stressed that at this stage there is no evidence of any hostile action. There is nothing to suggest that Iran's fire or any military attack caused the incident, and the exact reason behind the emergency landing that is still under investigation. Well, in recognition of his more than 2 decades of military service, Acting Navy Secretary Hong, he has promoted Commander Gabriel Edwards to the rank of captain. In the final tribute to a man who spent much of his career serving his country in some of the world's most challenging waters. Well, the Arabian Sea has become one of the most strategically important regions in the world. Commercial shipping, naval deployment, and rising tension linked to the West Asia, it has kept military forces on constant alert. Even when there is no active combat, military operation remains dangerous. Sometimes the biggest risk, it comes not from the enemy attack, but from the unpredictable nature of the sea itself. And every such incident reminds us that behind every geopolitical headline, there are real people, real families, and real sacrifices. But sadly, the West Asian crisis does not end here. In fact, the whole situation is becoming even more dangerous. The reports now suggest Iran has launched fresh missile attacks targeting a key military zone in Jordan, raising fear that the conflict could spread even further. From one military tragedy, we move to another military escalation in West Asia. And this time, the spotlight is on Jordan, basically a country that has so far tried to stay away from any direct conflict. West Asia is once again on the edge. Fresh reports suggest that Iran has launched ballistic missiles towards Jordan, with the strategic Muwaffaq al-Salti airbase believed to be among the targets. This is not an ordinary military base. It is one of Jordan's most important air bases, and it is also used for joint operations involving American forces. And that is exactly why this development has attracted a lot of global attention. Well, as reports of the attack emerged, air raid sirens echoed across parts of Jordan. Air defense systems were activated. In the meantime, videos circulating online appeared to show missiles being intercepted in the night sky, while loud explosion could be heard in the background. Although many of these videos they are still being independently verified, they reflect a growing anxiety across the region. But the story is much bigger than one missile attack. According to reports, these strikes come after a series of attacks targeting American-linked military positions across Bahrain, Kuwait, and other Gulf countries. Every new strike is increasing fear that the whole conflict is no longer limited to just two nations. More nations are now finding themselves caught in the middle of an increasingly dangerous regional confrontation. You know what? Jordan has always played an important role in maintaining stability in West Asia. It shares border with Israel, Syria, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, making it the region's most strategically located countries. So any attack on Jordan immediately raises concern far beyond its borders. Military experts are now asking an important question here. If attacks continue against countries hosting American military assets, will the United States respond more aggressively or not? And yes, if Washington does respond, how will Iran react here? These are the questions without any easy answers. Every missile fired today increases the risk of another missile tomorrow. Every retaliation creates the possibility of even bigger retaliation. And that is exactly why governments around the globe are watching every development very carefully. For India, this crisis also carries important significance here. Millions of Indians live and work across Gulf nations. Thousands travel through Middle Eastern airspace every single day. Any further escalation could affect regional security, commercial flight, oil supplies, and global energy prices. The entire West Asia is standing at a very delicate moment. One wrong decision, one miscalculation, and this conflict could become much larger than anyone ever expects. But yes, while missiles continue to fly across the region, America has now launched another major military operation inside Iran itself. The conflict between the United States and Iran is showing no sign of slowing down. In fact, it is becoming more intense every single day. The U.S. Central Command, also known as CENTCOM, it has announced that American forces have completed another round of military strikes inside Iran. According to the U.S. military, the operation has targeted around 90 military sites across the country. Now, these included air defense system, missiles and drone storage facility, coastal surveillance equipment, naval assets, and military logistics infrastructure. American officials say that the purpose of these strikes was not to reduce Iran's ability to threaten the commercial shipping in the Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's most important oil shipping routes. This was the second consecutive day of American military action against the Iranian target, following the renewed hostilities between the two nations. Here, CENTCOM also released videos showing some of the strikes, saying that they were aimed at weakening Iran's military capabilities. According to the US military here, dozens of Revolutionary Guard boats and several strategic military positions had already been targeted during the earliest operation. Inside Iran, state media reported explosions in several cities, including Bushehr, Bandar Abbas, Shebar, and other important coastal locations. Video shared online showed large fires and thick black smoke rising into the sky. Iranian media also reported casualties following the strike here, although the full extent of the damage that is still being assessed. But Iran did not remain silent. According to reports, Tehran responded by launching missiles and drones towards American-linked targets in Bahrain and Kuwait. Iranian leaders also issued fresh warnings, saying that any further military action by the United States would receive a strong response. Senior Iranian officials accused Washington of continuing what they described as a confrontational foreign policy and insisted that Iran would not back down under any sort of pressure. One statement in particular, by the way, it has stood out. Iran's parliament speaker, he has warned that if America strikes again, Iran will strike back. He also said that the Strait of Hormuz would remain under Iran's control, signaling that Tehran intends to maintain pressure on one of the world's most strategically important waterways. And that is why the entire world is watching the conflict so closely. Strait of Hormuz is used to transport a significant share of the world's oil, and any disruption over there, it can quickly affect fuel prices, shipping costs, and inflation across the globe. Well, a regional conflict, it can become a global economic crisis within days. At the moment, both the nations continue to exchange military actions and strong political messaging. The biggest concern is not just what happened, it is what could happen next. Because history has shown us that the conflict often becomes bigger, not through one planned decision, but through one unexpected mistakes. And with that, it's time to wrap up tonight's edition of Skyline. The world is more connected than ever before. A decision taken in Washington, a missile fired in West Asia, or a military exercise in Asia, it can eventually affect families, businesses, and economies around the globe, including India. We'll continue to keep a track on every major international development and bring you the facts that matters in simple language. I'm Driti Atri. Thank you for watching Skyline. I'll see you again with another edition of Skyline. Until then, take care and stay informed.